Shut up, compressor.
Hola pendejos. I'm Matt with Doogs Models, and this is Not the Flank Off. You know, I had no intention of following up the flank off with another build review, but Patrick at MBK USA reached out and asked about a certain kit and if I'd be willing to build it, take a look at it, be brutally honest about it, and he knew exactly where to hit because I have this weird weak spot for gawky-looking armored cars with giant turrets on top of them. And that is exactly what we are going to be building, which is the Tiger model ERC-90 F1 Lynx. Now, the ERC-90 is a French design. It was intended to be this six-wheeled thing that would replace the AML-90 and the other AML series of vehicles. That didn't work out. The French went with a different design, and Panhard was like, well, fuck, what are we going to do now? So they shopped it around on the export market, and Argentina and Mexico, of all places, actually ended up buying some of them. And those are the markings that are represented in this kit. Now, it's six wheels. It's got some nifty little propellers in the back, so I'm assuming it's amphibious. 90-millimeter gun in a turret that looks very, very similar to what you see on the AML-90. It's going to be an interesting build. I've been curious about Tiger for a while because they've been putting out some interesting French esoteria, and honestly, their molding looks damn good. It looks pretty inventive in the way that they approach things, and I've got a weak spot for this kind of subject. So let's go ahead and turn this around, break open the box, do a quick overview, all that kind of bullshit, and then we'll get into building. All right, let's see what Tiger model has given us with this ERC-90. Now, first of all, it comes in a box, which, who really gives a shit, right? I mean, all models come in boxes, except for the really shitty ones in bags. And we have the instructions and painting guide and things like that. Pull those aside. And in here, we've got a nice compact little kit in a bunch of bags. Now, for the most part, I love it when a kit comes nicely bagged like this because it means the parts are more or less protected. But when it comes time to doing this sort of quick inbox look, all these bags are a pain in the ass because you have to open all of them. So there may be a bit of editing silliness here as I cut away the fun struggles of opening bags and casting them aside, but you guys can deal with that, right? So first up, we have the main body of the armored car itself, which comes in two halves. I do not believe there's interior with this, which honestly I don't really mind because interiors slow things down, and if they slow things down on an armor build for me, that's a great way for me to put it in a drawer and never take it back out. But this thing does fit together, at least top and bottom. Currently, with pretty nice authority, any sort of seams are going to be hidden up under the fenders where they will not be seen. And yeah. Now, molding quality on this looks pretty solid. Nice surface details in there. And just from looking at pictures of these things, they're pretty clean on the outside anyway, with smooth surfaces and not a lot of cast texture or anything like that. So I think this is capturing it quite well. And got the side flanks there, all that good stuff. So, yeah. Next, we're going to move on to the M sprue because we're doing this in alphabetical order, right? And these are wheel hubs and various other pieces here. It looks like it's an antenna base, perhaps. We've got D-rings, toe shackles, all that fun stuff. So, small, useful parts. Next, we have this adorable little turret, which looks very close to the AML-90 turret on the TACOM kit that I built earlier this year. And yeah, this is, again, solid detail. I think this is outshining the TACOM kit in terms of overall finesse. And look, it actually has mounting holes that are authoritative. The front looks very nice as well, so no complaints there. Okay, next we've got Sprue L, which is the clear parts, the worst part of any armor kit. Now, this one has a whole bunch of clear parts. Periscopes galore. We've got, lenses, various things like that. And then these pieces here are for this piece that kind of sits on the front, and I think it's almost like a riot shield for the driver. It's the best guess I can make for it, because it looks like it's in an assembly that can sort of pop up and provide visibility, but protection from whatever's being thrown. Either that or it's some sort of weird windshield, which I don't really know why they would need a windshield if they can just close the hatch, but sure. Anyway, these parts look pretty nice. I'm particularly impressed with the detail in this one light right here. This thing is super bright looking, and I mean, it's clear, but it almost looks like there's silver behind it already, just with how gleamy it is. So that's nice to see. These will be fun to install. I'm not really looking forward to dealing with all the periscopes, though. Next up, we've got the scourge of armored car kits everywhere. Rubber tires. Now, I will say, these actually do look like pretty good rubber tires as rubber tires go. Nicely detailed. They don't have a noticeable seam running down the middle of them that will make them impossible to clean up, but rubber tires are still rubber tires, which is a pain in the ass. I think Tiger model may recognize that rubber tires are a pain in the ass because they also give you another option. Those out of the way. That is found on the F Sprue. Plastic tires, how about that? And they get around the whole joining two halves thing and making a whole mess of it by having 3-part tires. Which, when I first saw this, I was like, what the fuck are they doing? But as I started looking at them more, the potential genius of it really leapt out. So, you've got inside and outside faces, you've got this middle part. But look at when you turn it and look at it sort of edge on. The treads overlap. So these treads will be going into the open spaces here, etc. And that should go a massive distance toward hiding any sort of seam and making these look the part, which is awesome. Kudos to Tiger Model for thinking this up. This is a nice thing to see. Now, the only frustrating part is it looks like the wheel hubs have to be installed sort of through the inside. So you have to install them before you close up the tires, which is a little bit of a pain in the ass. It's sometimes nice to be able to paint the hubs and the tires separately, but honestly, I think there's a way where we can get around that and literally paint the tires before we glue them together and just leave the tread to be treated later. So, we'll have to see. Next up, we've got Sprue B, which has things like doors, Pioneer tools, drivetrain components, more drivetrain components, hatches, and the tow cable, which thankfully is just plastic, because there's nothing I find more tiresome on an armor kit than just getting the tow hook ends and then having to come in here and install some sort of bullshit copper wire or even worse, thread to represent that. I mean, it's so much easier just to have this, cut it, stick it on the kit, done. So, that is nice to see that is handled that way. Overall, the detail on these look incredibly crisp and incredibly sharp. One nice detail here is these mirrors seem not only very well defined, which will make painting and masking off the actual clear or the mirror part of it a lot easier, but they are beefy and detailed at the same time. When I was working on the Tacom AML-90, the mirrors on that thing were a pain in the ass, and then I actually ended up looking and seeing that, a lot of times they are either sort of flopped down or they're just left off entirely. And so that's what I did, because, they were that annoying. These look like they'll be a lot easier to handle. Next up, we've got Sprue C, which looks like it's mainly concerned with the turret. And we've got the machine guns that mount up on the turret here, the main gun here, which is, as you can see, not one piece, but the main barrel is one piece. You've got this element up here, and then you've got the muzzle brake in pieces over here and things like that. Bottom of the turret. And then I think these are like sand ladders, essentially, and I think they sort of stack together, and they install over here on the fender of the little beastie. So, overall, that looks pretty good. I mean, if you look at the machine gun detail in here, I'll take that for plastic injection. That is not bad. For our last bit of plastic here, we've got Sprue K, which has a random assortment of things. Let's see, where did they go? Over here, we've got what look like those little propeller screws in the back. And then this looks like a mounting plate almost for smoke canisters. So just general bits and parts. And again, they look good, but it doesn't necessarily look like there needs to be a lot of detail on these. So it's kind of tough to really make a judgment call at the moment. Now, most armor kits include some sort of little goodie bag that includes decals and photo etch and things like that. And Tiger model is no exception, but they seem to have gone a bit above and beyond what you would normally expect. So here we've got screws, legit suspension screws. Now that would be a lot cooler if it looked like they were workable suspension. Unfortunately, if you look, backtrack to Sprue B, if you look at, here are the springs right here, and here are the parts without springs, and they are the same length, they just have a core in them. So it's not like if you put these springs on, you'll be, bouncing around on your base. They're just there to enhance the look. So I'm going to give that a half kudos because it would have been really cool to have workable suspension on this, but the detail is still appreciated. Polycaps, I'm assuming these are for wheels to be able to mount them and unmount them. More more springs. These are shorter. They're obviously for one of the other of these 6x6. Now, I'm curious how they're going to do the middle wheels on this, because if you look at photos of the ERC-90, this middle wheel, half the time it's on the ground with the other two. The other half the time it's elevated, so it's kind of like riding free, and it's just a 4x4 as opposed to a 6x6. So, be curious to see in the instructions if they have options and provisions for that. We've got a nice little bit of photo etch here, turret ring, some grills, things like that. Hoping this is thinner than the stuff that Trumpeter normally gives, so it'll be actually cuttable. But, yeah. Some hopefully solid-looking decals. It's hard to tell because this plastic sleeve is so damn thick. These are quite protected. So, they look like they might be a little bit thick. We'll have to see. Fortunately, that's the thing that's easier to hide on armor than it is on aircraft. Great wall hobby and your SU-35. But we'll certainly be testing some of these first to see how they perform, and probably adding some sort of clear coat to protect the paint before we add them. And last we have whatever the fuck this is. I have no idea. I don't know why we need the first several letters of the alphabet with Tiger model logo on them. And maybe it's for marking up the instructions so you can keep track of which version you're doing. I don't know. This defies explanation. Okay, let's take a quick tear through the instructions. I'm not going to linger. We'll go through that as we're building the damn thing. Hey, look, it has parts. Now, this is a bit interesting. The construction begins with the turret as opposed to what you would normally expect, like the drivetrain components. And so, these clips in, put the bottom in, top, put, various things in, smoke canisters, cupolas, periscopes, guns. Looks like we get to pick which gun we want based on, I'm assuming, the schemes. I'm going to guess Argentina and Mexico use different guns. More turret, main gun. The main gun looks pretty foolproof. I actually like the way the muzzle brake closes around the barrel itself. Leads to less chance of misalignment or flop. It looks like, okay, we move into assembling the rear parts, chassis parts, and then finally in here, we start installing bump stops. Polycap for the middle wheel. That's interesting. Suspension. Now we get to the springs. Now this is where we have these springs that go over the center pillars here. I'm not really sure why they went with the metal, unless it's just detail, because it doesn't look like they're going to move, especially because everything connects to actual holes and mounting posts. And if you don't want to use the springs, you can use the plastic parts. Then we get the water injection nozzle. Interesting. So yeah, maybe they're not propellers, maybe it's more like a jet ski water turbine thing that they've got going on. Either way, it's a pretty cool little feature. So it looks like those get installed at this point. Then we move on to the tires and wheels. Muffler, door, little shit on the front, more little shit on the front. It's a bit frustrating. They have all those clear parts and it looks like C is not clear parts, but I can swear that there is a little thing there. Maybe we install something else into it. Hooks and clips and mounts and D-rings and doors and mirrors. Close it all up. And then this is where we get to that front hole parts, as they call it, but it looks like this is that sort of pop-up riot shield, windshield thing that goes right here. So there's all the clear parts in to K29 and then into K28 as well. And then you bring them together. So I think what we're going to be doing here is probably painting these two separately, installing this shit, then closing it up, and probably doing a little bit of touch up on the sides if we need to. I think that might be the cleanest way to go about that. We've got the front headlights. Those look nice. And we've got a bunch of little strappy bits here. And we've got the driver's hatch, the lovely tow rope, tow cable. And this is what I was talking about with the sand ladder. It looks like they stack right here. And then right here they go onto the fender, Pioneer tools, yada yada. Little shit in the back, turret ring. Yeah, I think this looks pretty straightforward. And finally we've got a cover for the muffler, so nice and hidden in the end, and you put the turret in, and you are done. Okay, quickly before we wrap up this sort of first glance, let's look at the schemes that we get to play with. First up, we have got this Argentina Marines Snorefest, where it is basically all one color, and that color is some kind of green. It is MiG-81. Now, my frustration with Ammo's takeover of a bunch of these scheme sheets isn't anything to do with their paint. It's their naming convention and the fact that it's just, oh, that's MiG-81. What the fuck is MiG-81? How the hell do I know what MiG-81 is supposed to be? Or MiG-33? Or MiG-46? I don't know. I have to Google it, and that's frustrating. And you would think there could be a legend in here somewhere, or if that's literally olive drab and it just turns out to be olive fucking drab. It's a matter of I have to do the extra legwork to find that out and hold on to it or translate it into another paint brand or things like that. Now, a long time ago when I reviewed the Tan Model RF-84F, one thing I really liked was that every step of the instructions when you need to paint, they would have a little thing at the top or the bottom that would say, this call out means this kind of paint. So, if it was guns C whatever, then it would also have what the color is so you know what you're dealing with. With this, I have no idea what MiG-81 is, so it's some kind of green. On the other side, we have much more exciting Mexican Army options. So we've got this one here from either 1990 or 1988. I think that's just based on different numbers that you choose. Nothing that says exciting like green and tan camouflage. So I'm not even going to bother with that one. We have this 2005 one in what looks much more like French colors. I don't know what MiG-84 is. I'm going to guess that these are probably NATO green, NATO brown, NATO black. But it'd be nice to know. And so, yeah. Now, the ones I really want to focus on are these two here at the bottom. That's right. That is digital camouflage. Hot damn. Now, I have not done digital camouflage yet, and it is something that I am keen to try, and I think I'm going to give it a go on this kit. The challenge, though, is that we've got it here on the scheme, right? On the scheme sheet, you see what it looks like. It's right there. But the kit gives you no provision for actually doing this. No decals, no masks, nothing. And this is the kind of scheme that demands masking or decals. I honestly prefer masking, but I've seen aircraft do it with decals, so it can go either way. But for fuck's sake, that's a lot to ask. And I'm going to give it a go just because I am interested in trying to do it and seeing how it comes out, and because I have a vinyl cutting machine and a rudimentary knowledge of Adobe Illustrator, so I can make my own damn masks. But that is something where I feel Tiger kind of slips with, because there's no way to pull this off without either really good masking skills or making your own masks on a computer. So, as cool as it is that they threw in the digital camo schemes, I think if they'd gone a little bit further and thrown in a masking sheet with them, that would have put this kit over the top for me. So, that is that. Which one am I going to do? Right now, I'm leaning towards this guy, the desert camo with the fun sort of dark brown, light gray brown, and light green pixels. That'll be interesting to pull off. So, with that, let's turn it back around. Okay, first impressions of this little guy. So far, so good. And I think there are a few areas where it's not so much that they're bad, it's that there is potential that is teased and then not executed upon. So, hey, here are springs. You see springs in an armory kit, you think working suspension, except nope, it's not really working suspension. That's a little bit frustrating. You see pixelated camo and you think, oh, maybe they'll give us some kind of provision for pulling that off. Nope, no. Those little things might seem like I am looking for reasons to dislike this kit, which is not true. It's just there are things where you get your hopes up with the kit. It's like, oh, that could be cool. Oh, it's not as cool as it seemed like it might be. That doesn't mean the rest of the kit isn't solid as hell. It's just these are areas where if they had pushed a little bit further, it would have been awesome. So, next we're going to actually get into building this guy and seeing how well it goes together and whether or not what looks like pretty clever engineering and pretty crisp detail holds up when we get into fit. And while I am doing that, I am also going to be sort of in the background working on building the masks for the digital camo. And if that completely fucks up, then I will probably revert to doing the fun NATO scheme, because if nothing else, it's more colorful. So that's that. Thanks for watching. Stick around. I will try to think up some stupid name for this review, kind of like Flank Off. I'm not sure what it'll be. Right now I'm thinking perhaps Work Hard, Pan Hard, because it's made by Pan Hard, but we can only take the dad jokes so far. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.